The NBA's All-Star Game may not be for another few weeks, but the fan voting for who the viewers want to see in the event actually closes tomorrow, so the picks need to be in as soon as possible. The event is a time to celebrate the best players of the season, and while there are always familiar faces making it year in and year out, this season we should definitely be seeing quite a few first-timers joining the ranks, which is pretty exciting stuff. So obviously, for today's video, I'll be going through both conferences, selecting the 12 players each that, in my opinion, deserve to be chosen to play in the game the most. Additionally, because of how difficult the final few inclusions can be, I will acknowledge a few snubs that just missed the cut at the end of each selection process as well. Before we start though, I want to thank PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. PrizePicks is the perfect service for all of us basketball fans here because when you're involved, it makes watching games every night so much more fun and engaging. Basically, it's an application that provides you with lines on all kinds of individual player props, such as points, rebounds, and assists, and you simply have to choose whether you believe they will record over the set amount in the line or under the set amount in the line. Make your selections, wager however much you want to, and if your picks hit, you can win some big money. For some picks I'm looking at today's games, I'm thinking of going with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander to score over 22.5 points, Joel Embiid to score over 29.5 points, and Terry Rozier to score over 19.5 points. If this sounds at all intriguing to you, then go use the link down in the description of this video to sign up today and use promo code REFERENCE to receive a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. Once again, thank you to PrizePicks for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into the topic at hand. Starting in the Eastern Conference, the starting lineup features an entire front court of locks pretty much, as Giannis Antetokounmpo, Joel Embiid, and Kevin Durant will easily take those three spots. Then for the guards, my choices are Trae Young and DeMar DeRozan. I won't spend too much time on the players that were obvious selections, but needless to say, Giannis, Durant, and Embiid are all prime MVP candidates this year, so their inclusion should be self-explanatory. Giannis's two-way prowess has him not only in the MVP race, but also the Defensive Player of the Year race. Durant is the league's leading scorer, and Embiid is carrying a shorthanded 76ers team to a top 5 seed, despite all of the Ben Simmons drama unfolding and a down year from his running mate Tobias Harris. As for the backcourt, Trae Young's Hawks may be one of the most underwhelming teams of the season as they currently sit in 12th place in the East, but it isn't due to lack of production from Trae. He's scoring about 28 points and dishing out 9.5 assists per game. He's the engine that makes the Hawks offense go. That ranks second in the league, by the way, and while impacting winning does come into account for these nominations, his production is too huge to ignore. With DeRozan, he gets the final guard spot because he's coming from a Bulls team that he has helped transform completely. They're sitting atop the Eastern Conference standings right now, he's the team's leading scorer, and he's been responsible for closing out games in clutch fashion countless times. Now that we've gotten the starters out of the way, we can move on to the East's bench, which, for those of you who don't know, also needs to be comprised of 2 guards, 3 frontcourt players, then 2 additional wildcard players that can be either one. So with that said, the first 5 bench players for me are James Harden and Zach LaVine in the backcourt, then Jimmy Butler, Jason Tatum, and Jarrett Allen in the frontcourt. Harden started the season slow and people were very critical of his play, but as the season has progressed, he's returned to form as one of the most lethal playmakers in the NBA, as he is currently leading the league in assists per game, dishing out 10 of them. Zach LaVine gets the nod as DeRozan's partner in the backcourt of the best team in the East, and his 25 points per game definitely warrant selection along with that. Jimmy Butler actually has his Miami Heat neck and neck with the Bulls at the top of the Eastern Conference standings too right now, which I feel like is flying a bit under the radar, but he has embraced more of a playmaking role while taking control of games down the stretch too, so he is also an easy choice here. Jason Tatum is a pick that I'll admit I'm not the biggest fan of having to make here, because every criticism that has come his way this year has been pretty valid. His scoring is down, his shot selection deserves backlash, his efficiency has tanked from prior seasons, and he doesn't pass the ball enough, but his overall production is still objectively solid, and we would be kidding ourselves if we said that we wouldn't have him in the game this year. As for Jarrett Allen, he's a first newcomer that we're discussing today, so far, and his work for Cleveland as their rim protector on defense has helped elevate them to being a top 3 team defense in the NBA. Then, with his individual production overall, he's putting up a nice 16 points and 11 rebounds per game, so while some of you might think this is a weaker selection, I can assure you that he is deserving this year. Now we move on to the 2 wildcard choices for the East that can be either position, and from this conference we have 2 guards, being Fred VanVleet and Darius Garland. At one point it felt like this would be a wash of a season for the Raptors as they dealt with a ton of injuries, but VanVleet simply refused to let that happen, as he's been averaging about 26 points and 7 assists per game over his last 11 games, which featured a 6-game winning streak in that span too. As for Garland, for me it came down to either him or LaMelo Ball, who I unfortunately had to snub from the last spot, and honestly I think Garland gets the slightest of edges over him, as he is scoring more points than LaMelo, he's dishing out more assists than LaMelo, and is shooting more efficiently than LaMelo for a better team too. Now moving on to the Western Conference, beginning with the starting lineup, we have Steph Curry and Ja Morant in the backcourt, followed up by Nikola Jokic, LeBron James, and Rudy Gobert in the frontcourt. I don't want to spend too much time talking about the obvious choices, as you all know why LeBron James, Steph Curry, and Nikola Jokic are there, but I gave Ja Morant the nod as the second starting guard in the lineup because he has been willing this Grizzlies team to heights nobody saw coming from them, as they sit in 3rd place in the Western Conference standings at the moment, and when you look at his averages of 25 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds per game, there isn't anyone else with a better argument here when it comes to production combined with winning record. As for Rudy Gobert, he may not be much of a fan favorite around the league, but he is at the heart of everything that the Jazz succeed at, and every advanced metric ranks him as one of the most impactful players of the season. That, plus, if I'm being honest, the Western Conference hasn't really produced many all-star caliber frontcourt players either, because of either the amount of talent that are injured, or because of just disappointing overall individual seasons. Now on to the reserves. The first 5 names on the Western Conference bench are Luka Doncic and Chris Paul in the backcourt, then Draymond Green, Karl Anthony Towns, and Paul George in the frontcourt. Luka Doncic is another star that began the year slowly, but as of late, his production is getting back to the crazy numbers that we've grown accustomed to seeing from him, and on top of that, the Mavericks are also moving up the standings and dominating on defense, which may surprise some of you. Chris Paul is what makes the Suns, who have the best record in the NBA right now, go, and while he has an argument to start in favor of Ja Morant, I favor Ja Morant over him, so he's slotted into the bench. For the forwards, as I said earlier, the frontcourt options in the West are kind of weak this year, but Draymond Green is probably leading the Defensive Player of the Year race, and the Warriors, when they play without him, as evidenced by their collapse against the Pacers, show that he is so critical to their success. Karl Anthony Towns is averaging 24 points and 9 rebounds per game while shooting the ball above 40% from 3, and doing things very few big men have ever done as a shooter, so he's here. Then with Paul George, he has missed a good bit of time, but he's played 26 games so far on the season, which I admit is cutting it close, but it's still enough of a sample size to justify his selection, mostly because I don't really like many of the other options in the front court for the West. As for the final 2 wildcard spots in the Western Conference, we have Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell. Once again, 2 guards snag the wildcard spots because this has been a season dominated by guard play. As the team with the best record in the West, the Suns deserve a second All-Star, and Devin Booker being their leading scorer is more than enough justification for that choice. As for Donovan Mitchell, the Jazz may no longer be the number 1 seed in the West like they were a season ago, but they get a second All-Star nomination from their team because Mitchell is still individually deserving, as he averages about 26 points per game to lead the way for the team. The only real snubs that I can think of in the Western Conference are Anthony Davis and Damian Lillard, but both have been held out of competition for weeks now, or even months, due to injury, and Lillard specifically isn't set to return anytime soon, so it's incredibly tough to justify picking someone in that position. Andrew Wiggins is someone who has had massive push from the fan voting to be in the All-Star game, but while it has been awesome seeing him embrace the role that he's in on the Warriors by taking smarter shots and playing better defense, I just don't agree with the idea of him being an All-Star this season at all. He has been good, but 18 points and 4 rebounds per game don't really cut it when every metric actually points to your two teammates of Curry and Draymond Green being the impact players on the squad and not you. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you think should make the All-Star game this season. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.